Hi everyone, this is Dr. Manu Krishnan K, and today we'll be discussing about the introductory part of the spinal cord. So we'll see what is spinal cord and from word to word it extends. We'll see the dimensions of the spinal cord, the enlargements of the spinal cord, and the covering of the spinal cord, that is called as the spinal meninges, and the spaces between these layers. So these are the basic things that we'll be discussing today. So first of all, let's begin with the introduction. The long cylindrical lower part of the central nervous system is termed to be the spinal cord. So as we all know, the central nervous system is composed of the brain and the spinal cord. So the upper part constitutes the brain and the lower cylindrical part is termed as the spinal cord. And it is the most important content of the vertebral canal. You all know about the vertebral canal, right? So if you take a vertebrae, there is a body and a neural arch, and between these two we can find a small foramen, that is a vertebral foramen. When they are connected continuously, that is termed as the vertebral canal. So the spinal cord is the major content of the vertebral canal, and it is the important pathway connecting the brain and the peripheral nervous system. So the information is always passing through the spinal cord towards the brain and as well as backwards from the brain to the peripheral areas. And the spinal cord occupies the upper two-thirds of the vertebral canal. So if you take the whole vertebral canal, the spinal cord will only be occupying the upper two-thirds of it. So let's see what are the other features. So here I'll just show you one demonstration where we'll just draw down the brain. So I'm just drawing the brain here. We have the lateral sulcus, central sulcus and all, and we have the cerebellum here. It's a pictorial representation, and here there will be the spinal cord. So the spinal cord, we should know from word to word it extends, and what are the major components covering it, and how it is protected from the outside environment, and we will see the basic features. Okay, these are the things we will be discussing today. So I'll just draw and show you how it is occupied within the vertebral canal. So here I'm just drawing a vertebrae. Roughly I'm drawing one vertebrae here with the two transverse processes. Then we have the body here. This is the neural arch, and we have the pedicles joining the neural arch with that of the body. So the area within this particular arch and the body is termed as the vertebral canal, and the spinal cord will be lying within that. So these are the basic things you should know about the introductory part. So let's see the rest of the file. So the extent of spinal cord. The spinal cord begins from the upper border of the atlas vertebrae and as a continuation of the medulla oblongata. So you might have studied about the midbrain, pons and medulla, right? That constitutes the brainstem. So the lowermost part of the brainstem is the medulla oblongata, and as a continuation of that, the spinal cord will exit the cranial cavity through the foramen magnum, and it begins at the level of, precisely if we say, at the upper border of the atlas vertebrae. So that is the beginning point of the spinal cord, and the spinal cord extends downwards and finally terminates as a conical projection, that is the conus medullaris, and that forms at the level of the lower border of the first lumbar vertebrae. So it extends from the upper border of the atlas vertebrae to the lower border of the first lumbar vertebrae, and the termination point is conical in shape, and that is called as the conus medullaris. So I think that is clear for you. And when it comes to the dimensions, so if you take the whole length of spinal cord, in adult males it will come up to 45 centimeter, while in case of adult females it is 42 centimeters in length, and it weighs around 30 to 35 grams, and the diameter constitutes 1.25 centimeters. So it's a cylindrical structure. That's why we have mentioned the diameter here. and you can see it's a very thin diameter, right? Only 1.25 centimeters. Then comes the enlargements of the spinal cord. So you will be wondering why these enlargements are present. So let's see how these enlargements are formed. I'll be just drawing a rough figure here. So imagine this is the brain and this is the cerebellum, and from the lower part you can see I'm just drawing a straight line here and finally a conical projection. So we can represent the spinal cord like this. But there are two things that you have to note. So when it comes to the spinal cord, it has got two enlargements, and I'm just showing the two enlargements. Here one enlargement is there. Similarly, in the lumbar region also we have another enlargement. So you can just define this as the two enlargements of the spinal cord, which is composed of the cervical enlargement, which is extending from the level C4 to T1. So here you can see C4 to T1, and that peculiarly that enlargement happens at the level of the brachial plexus. So the nerves that arise from the spinal cord will be passing on to the upper limb, and that is the reason for the enlargement which is present in that particular region. Similarly, the lumbar enlargement will give rise to the lumbosacral plexus, and that gives innervations for the lower limb. So from here it will go to the upper limb, and from the lumbar enlargement it will go to the lower limbs. So that is the basic things you should know about the enlargements of the spinal cord. Then we have the spinal meninges, which is composed of three layers. There is the dura mater, which is the outermost layer. We have the arachnoid mater, that is the middle layer, and pia mater, which is the innermost layer. So let's see how they are formed. So I am just drawing here the spinal cord. So imagine this is the spinal cord. So the first layer covering the spinal cord will be the pia mater. So I am representing it with yellow color. This is the pia mater, the immediate covering of the spinal cord. Then we have the arachnoid mater, which comes above it. I am representing it with the red one. And finally, the outermost layer, that is the dura mater. So this is how the spinal cord will be covered. So this black color represents the dura mater. So I am just labeling them, the dura mater. Then we have the arachnoid mater. Then we have the pia mater, and finally we have the spinal cord here. So the spinal cord is protected by these layers, and when these layers are formed, there will be certain space formed between these each layers. So let's see how they are formed. The first one is the epidural space, and the epidural space is filled with the internal vertebral venous plexus, so that there is a network of venous plexus covering the spinal cord, which drains the blood supply. The venous drainage of the spinal cord is happening through this vertebral venous plexus, and that is termed as the Batson's plexus. And then the second space which comes is the subarachnoid space, and the subarachnoid space, as the name suggests, it lies below the arachnoid layer, and below the arachnoid mater it extends up to the level of the S2 vertebrae. So this space, which will extend downwards a little more than that of the length of the spinal cord. That is a peculiarity, and the spinal cord ends at the level of the L1 vertebrae, and later on the subarachnoid space will extend downwards as a lumbar cistern. Cistern is otherwise known as a pool. So there is a pool which is formed from the lower border of this particular spinal cord. It will extend down, the subarachnoid space will extend down as the lumbar cistern, and this cistern will be pulling up the cerebrospinal fluid. And you might have heard about a procedure called as the lumbar puncture. So this particular lumbar puncture is particularly done at this particular level so that the CSF can be drained from the lumbar cistern without injuring the spinal cord. So that is the clinical importance of this lumbar cistern. Then we have the third one, that is the pia mater, which is composed of three different structures. I have mentioned the peculiar parts of this pia mater. We have the linea splendens, that is the thickened glistening band along the andromedian fissure. So when you take the spinal cord external features, you will find an anterior median fissure which is running along the whole length of the spinal cord, and at that particular area the pia mater lying close to it will be thickened to form a glistening band that is called as the linea splendens. Then we have the ligamenta denticulata. Along the lateral aspect of the spinal cord, there are 21 pairs of triangular thickenings. So on either sides of the spinal cord, we will have folds of pia mater which is triangular in shape, and that will be attached to that of the dura mater. And this is termed as the ligamenta denticulata. So the term denticulata refers to tooth-like projections. Since we have triangular projections towards the lateral aspect of spinal cord, they are termed as ligamenta denticulata. Then we have the filum terminale. At the lower end of the spinal cord, the pia mater will be extending down as a thin filament, and that filament-like structure which extends down from the tip of the spinal cord is termed as the filum terminale. So these are the important things you should be remembering regarding the spinal cord. So when it comes to the introduction, you should have a proper definition giving what is spinal cord. Then we have to define like what are the extents from where it begins and where it ends. Then we have to go for the enlargements. Then we have to see the coverings of the spinal cord, which is called as the spinal meninges, the three layers. Then we have to see the spaces which are formed between these layers of spinal cord. So these are the basic things you should know about the introductory part of the spinal cord. Thank you.